I have been creating a list of the top 50 strongest One Piece characters for 7 months. Also that I can create one video. For this list, I'll be taking into account the strongest versions of each character. However, there are many people who will not be spoken on today because they have not done shit. For example, apparently Imu is supposed to be the final strongest villain. I don't care, because he has not shown anything. Same for Boa, Crocodile, and every other character who's on screen right now. I've also broken this list up into tiers, so if Usopp and Nami are right next to each other in S tier, that basically means it can go either way between them. But at the same time, if Brook was at the bottom of S tier and Robin was at the top, it's pretty clear who would win. By the way, I have vids on all of these characters pretty much, so if my reasoning isn't enough for these rankings, I'm sure I have a video that goes more in depth. Without further ado, let's get into the worst of the worst. Barely relevant, F tier. Now, there are only 3 characters from said tier who are actually in the top 50. See, over the past months, I've added a lot of people to my original list, so some niggas got bumped out, with the 3 who are actually left in F tier being Franky, Husu, and Katakuri. What? To start, Who's Who and Sasaki are implied to be the strongest Tobiropo members. Franky beat Sasaki, however it was by a thin margin, whereas Who's Who is a trained assassin with skill that rivaled Rob Lucci. Katakuri is above them at 48. I know y'all are screaming at me in the comments, but I made an entire video on this shit months back, to which I still haven't been proven wrong. On the contrary though, I have changed my opinion a little since that vid. I originally said that since Ulti fought base Luffy, who was stronger than when he fought Katakuri, then she just beats him in every stat. Not true, because Luffy blitzes both Ulti and Page 1 in that fight, but the fact still stands that the Tobiropo are taking way heavier hits, even clashing with far stronger people than Cat did in Whole Cake Island. I chalk this up to their durable Zoan Devil Fruits. This toughness of ancient Zoans is highlighted multiple times throughout the Wano arc, with characters needing to bypass it with durability negation. So what I'm saying is, a fight between Katakuri and any of the Tobiropo would literally be a battle of strength versus dex. Cat already has better speed plus future sight, whereas the Tobiropo are extreme tanks with better hockey. Can Katakuri speed his way around the opponents, whittling them down over time, or will he get caught slipping, taking massive damage from one hit? Since he fought Luffy for over 11 hours, I think he can play the long game and endure his way through the battle. So yay! Cat does beat the Tobiropo, but like by a thin margin. The fact that he's this low shows that he's nothing to other top commanders. That is it for F tier though, and I'm definitely curious to see how many placements get bumped out over the course of 2024. It's definitely not looking good for the Mochi Man, since we have 40 relevant characters who have not been ranked yet. Next up is D tier, the characters. To start off, Jack says that while injured, the scabbards are too much for the Tobiropo. He even stops Black Maria from trying to find them. This claim can be countered by saying Black Maria alone can't stop all 9 of them. However, the way Jack phrases this statement sounds like he's talking about all of the Tobiropo versus the scabbards. The vassals also have advanced armament hockey, so theoretically, they could do better than the Straw Hats did, because advanced armament would make the durable ancient Zoans that the Flying Six have useless. Base form Jack got blitzed by Ashura as well, who sure could be the strongest of the 9, but should still be somewhat relative to them. At 47 and 46, we have Raizo and Kanjuro. Out of the 8 who fought Kaido, Raizo was the only one to reflect an attack, not even using his own strength. Plus, he's a ninja who isn't an upfront fighter like the rest. Kanjuro is a traitor, but he technically was a part of the scabbards for a minute, and he can fight with some of them while they're trying to kill him. He straight up loses to Kiku though. 45 and 44 are Maha and Grunesha from CP0. I know, I forgot about them too. You may notice that Lucci with the rest of CP0 aren't here, but they are, and that's because they have actual feats instead of just getting beat up all the time like Lucci and Kaku. The duo beat Drake and Apu, as well as some giants in a 2v4. Remember, Drake is a part of the Tobiropo, with 3 members of the Numbers who rank right below the Tobiropo. This is for sure a feat for the assassins. Furthermore, I will say that Lucci and Kaku are probably far beyond this. Above CP0, we have 43, 2, and 1 being Kiku, Izo, and Kinemon. Narratively, Clearly, Kiku is weaker than Izo because of the whole big brother thing. On top of that, she has 20 years of experience in one country, whereas Izo sailed the world. Kinemon is the leader of the Scabbards, being one of the 4 who performed the Paradise Totsuka on Kaido. From 40 to 37, we have Kappa, Jinbei, Ashura, and Denjiro. The 3 samurai are implied to be the strongest of the Scabbards, besides the Minks. Kappa had one of the heaviest hits on Kaido. Ashura is the physically greatest of the 9. Jinbei is between those 2 because Ashura has a better feat, and Denjiro beats all of that because he's the most skilled swordsman among the Scabbards. That wraps up D tier though. Most of these characters probably won't get much shine in the future because their stories are over, but here's high hopes for Jinbei making it to C tier next year. C tier is mid, but towards the top we have some pretty heavy hitters. For number 36, we have Jack. Jack is by far the weakest out of Kaido's top 3, however he should still be on the same level as them. Number 35 is Nekomamushi and Inarashi. Now you may be asking, why do you have an Ice Climbers ass duo on the list? To that I have to say, they're dead equals, so they would be in the same spot anyways. It allows me to include one more character, and this is my list, so shut the fuck up. If we did split them up, then okay, Frankie's off the list. Wah wah. Neko and Inu would just be above Jack anyways, because even without Sulong forms, they were able to fight evenly with him. At number 34 is Ace. In my Ace video, I couldn't find who exactly he was stronger than, but since then, I've figured it out. In the novels, he fought Whitebeard in a losing battle, just like how the Scabbards fought Kaido. Whitebeard at the time was the strongest man in the world, and you know where this is going. Ace basically did the same thing as the vassals, only on a stronger emperor by himself. He also survived a Quake Punch from Whitebeard, whereas the vassals are strongly implied to be getting one-shot by regular swings from base Kaido. Jozu is above Ace due to him being the physically strongest of the Whitebeard pirates. Look at it this way, if Fire Fist is getting destroyed by basic hits from Blackbeard, then Jozu will kill him on impact. Vista is above both of them due to him matching an attack from Marco, and he's touted as a swordsman of the highest class. Also, if you look at the context of when Vista was introduced, there were no swordsmen who were stronger than him besides the obvious ones. Queen comes in right outside the top 30. Unlike Jack, I don't think he gets overwhelmed by the Minks, nor do I believe anyone below Queen has the AP to seriously harm him. Number 30 through 28 are Marco, Killer, and King. 3 vice captains in a row, with King being the fastest among them. Plus, if pre-awakening Zoro wasn't hurting him, then neither are the others. At the same time though, Marco could probably outlast Queen in a 1v1, and if Killer could damage Dragon Form Kaido, then he could definitely hurt the second commander. Getting deep into the top 30 though, we have Edward Weevil. No, I'm not lying. This is really the highest that Weevil could go. It's only really because of Kizaru's statement that introduced him, plus his entire goal is to defeat commanders like Marco. An admiral was also sent to go pack him up as well, which is pretty telling of how strong he is. At the top of C tier, from least to greatest, is Sanji, Kid, and Law. I get it, Sanji blitzes and one-shots, but the only thing he does is beat Queen. Even then, it was with a last resort technique. I mean, it's very telling when Sanji barely beats a guy who's scared of Big Mom, but then this duo can seriously challenge her. Speaking of the pair though, Captain Mid! Captain Mid! Shut the fuck up. These two are equals no matter what anyone says. In fact, Kid has more endurance than Law. However, I still think the Surgeon takes it. K-Room is just too broken. It hurts Big Mom and is quick enough to clip Blackbeard. Unfortunately, Kid probably wouldn't be able to react. Don't get it twisted though, these two are right next to each other. We have reached the end of C tier. Again, most of these characters probably won't get any more shine, except for Marco. He'll come back and fight with top tiers on some bullshit. But Sanji along with Law are exceptions to this. Maybe Kid. I don't doubt that they'll be in higher tiers next year. Entering B tier, we have what many used to describe as lower Yonko level. Like they're there, but not quite. At the bottom of this tier is Yamato and Zoro. I'll only talk about Zoro for this section, so just keep in mind that everything he can do, Yamato can do as well. Unlike Sanji, as soon as Zoro got his main power-up, it was a slaughter. King loses with 3 named attacks, whereas Sanji needed a 13 named attack combo to put down Queen. Likewise, Rayleigh states that Conqueror's Haki is based on an individual's growth, meaning that Zoro should be completely above Kid since he has advanced Conquerors, whereas Kid only has the regular version. Now yes, these two are equals, however I know y'all are not going to accept that explanation for Law, so I'll just say this. Zoro can resist Law's abilities with Haki besides Gamma Knife and K-Room. The swordsman is also faster than Law due to Ashura blitzing Kaido, who blitzes the captain right after. Then King of Hell is equal to, if not more powerful than Ashura, and this is all while talking about Raid Zoro, not even a full HP and stamina version. As said before, I have whole videos on this stuff, so go check them out. Zoro is just one step away from that sky-splitting type energy, and if anyone's going to get him there, it's number 21, Shiryu. The former warden is here mainly because he's most likely going to be a future Zoro opponent. I know I said earlier that I wouldn't take that stuff into account, but there's something else to it. In an SPS, a reader asked about the vice captain color spread, to which Oda implied that he picked the strongest commanders of each crew. This was before Aokiji was confirmed to be a Titanic captain, so I'ma count it. At number 22, we have Big Mom. Now in the past, I claimed that Zoro could defeat her. I take that back. I'm not sorry, but I take it back. Lin is for sure the weakest emperor though, with overall the worst feats out of all of them. I don't think I really need to explain. Above her is Odin, due to the fact that he's in Kaido's top 5 list that is based on strength. Yes, Kaido has never fought Big Mom seriously, but he should still be able to sense her true power with observation Haki. At the top of B tier, we have Green Bull and Fujitora. Yes, I have 2 admirals above a Yonko, but I don't think it's that outlandish, seeing as how Kizaru can fight with Luffy. More on that later though. When faced up against the forces of Wano, Green Bull explains how no admirals should lose to commanders, and he destroys some of the scabbards. That is, until Yamato stepped in, to which he finally positively acknowledged someone. I put Aramaki above Big Mom and Odin due to this reaction, because he wasn't really pressed when Yamato entered the battlefield. At the same time though, Green Bull is the lowest admiral due to Luffy not even being scared of him on Wano, whereas when Kizaru pulled up to Egghead, Luffy was sweating. Finally, the only reason that Fujitora is here is because it's been shown that all admirals should be close to each other, plus he has better powers. Odin below these two may sound kinda crazy. I've heard both sides of the argument and it can really go either way. The problem is that these 3 exist in complete different eras and completely separate locations. That'll be all for B tier though. Half of these rankings definitely have the potential to go up, with Zoro being the obvious candidate. The admirals could show some crazy shit too. The top tiers reside in A tier. I would describe this level as pretty much every endgame character of One Piece. At the bottom though, we have Kizaru. Borsalino is in a separate tier from the other admirals due to the fact that he's actually been shown to fight the strongest Yonko. Not only did he plan to intercept Big Mom on her way to Wano, but he also gave Gear 5 Luffy a pretty good run for his money. Nowadays, people mainly focus on how Kizaru lost, but during the battle, not only was he conflicted, which we know weakens One Piece characters, but he was also focusing mainly on his mission. Although he is scared of his main op, Ben Beckman. Beckman is another one of those dudes that has 1 feat to base his entire ranking off of. I know some people see the Kizaru interaction as cap, but there are multiple databook statements that say/imply the admirals fear Ben's strength. There's also the Weaver card statement that says he has equal presence to his captain, but when you see where Shanks is ranked, you'll see why I'm not so comfortable putting them next to each other. Number 14, Kaido. While he may not be the strongest creature of all time, like everyone used to think, this beast is still extremely powerful, as he is able to take on the full assault of Gear 5 that lasted longer than Luffy versus Kizaru. Speaking of Luffy though, our protagonist comes in at number 13. I know that most don't think Luffy beat Kaido in a fair manner, but let me just lay some stuff out. Upon awakening, Gear 5 had less health since he died, whereas Kaido hadn't even been knocked out yet. Luffy states that he is still dying even after transforming, meaning that Gear 5 simply outlasted Kaido in terms of health. Full HP awakened Luffy would split the skies with Kaido, meaning that their fight would essentially skip to this point right here, without needing the worst generation or Yamato to help. On top of that, the Straw Hats get stronger with every island they go to, so Egghead Luffy would have an even better case. I'm sure people are already typing in the comments about how Kaido got jumped and he was holding up a city, all that shit, but this is not the video to be debating this. Switching up to a different crew, we have Aokiji at 12. The battle with Garp is a terrible representation of his power, as he was emotionally conflicted the whole time. As stated before, confliction does make characters weaker, which was pointed out twice in their battle. We can see this in other characters, such as how Garp got hurt by pre-time skip Luffy, and how Rayleigh says to never doubt his power. So if a weakened Aokiji can keep up with old Garp, who would be at the top of A tier by the way, then what would he do at full strength? At number 11, we have Blackbeard. There is a new meta that says Aokiji is greater than Blackbeard, but I give no credence to this. Like, why would Blackbeard of all people invite a guy into his crew that can knock all of them off? To be fair though, this mindset is understandable, as Teach's on-screen showings haven't been the best. He is still no joke though. Although he usually acts like a bumbling oaf, Blackbeard not only has the strongest devil fruit, but also the perfect counter to them. There are multiple statements of his unstoppable power, with Rayleigh himself admitting inferiority. Add in the fact that Blackbeard could be a future Luffy opponent, and I'd say he deserves the number 11 spot. Speaking of Rayleigh though, he will be the one who starts off the top 10. Present day Rayleigh has a reputation that scares Blackbeard, with it being heavily implied that he would have won in his prime. To add on to that, like other vice captains, he probably should have fought near the level of Roger and Whitebeard at the time. Even so, Rayleigh has nothing to put him above our next two characters. Shanks and Mihawk take the number 9 and 8 slots respectively. Mihawk over Shanks is obvious, I'ma leave it at that, but there is some reasoning as to why they are above Prime Ray. 12 years ago was when these rivals had their daily duels. They are implied to be the strongest swordsman at the time. Rayleigh was 66 at that time, so he could have still been in his prime. After all, characters in a similar realm of power such as Big Mom and Kaido are stated to be in their prime while in their 60s as well. The next future Luffy victim is number 7, Akainu. While we have seen barely anything from him, Sakazuki is the Fleet Admiral, meaning he should be the most powerful Marine in the most powerful era of the Marines. As stated, Whitebeard was the most powerful man in the world before the Marineford War. This would put him above Shanks and Mihawk. Since Garp and Whitebeard were relative in the past, they both should have deteriorated the same in old age. So Akainu is above old Garp, who is in a similar realm of power as old Whitebeard. And if you really think about it, there isn't anything to put Mihawk above Akainu. Sure, he is the world's greatest swordsman, but that doesn't mean anything here. Side note, if y'all are gonna be like, Shanks is actually at the top of this tier because he blocked Akainu. That was 2 years ago, and Akainu obviously got stronger through his fight with Aokiji. We have reached the end of A tier though. This is easily the tier that's most subject to change in the future. I could be completely wrong a month from now. Legends tier is where the actual strongest characters are placed. To explain, we'll have to talk about old Whitebeard once again. It's very simple though. While on his medicine, Old Beard was the strongest man in the world and had kept his title from when he was younger. I know I implied earlier with Kaido that titles don't matter, but unlike the ogre, Whitebeard's epithet comes directly from a narrator box rather than it being rumored or something like that. Now as we can see, Shanks and Mihawk would be below this Whitebeard blatantly, with Akainu not having any evidence in his favor. Prime Whitebeard is undoubtedly above all of this though, and every character in this tier is relative to him. To start, we have Sengoku and Garp at number 6 and 5. Prime Garp is the greatest hero of the Marines, with Sengoku always right behind him. Straight from Roger's mouth, it's said that they are the only two Marines that can challenge him. However, they can never catch Roger like our next placement. At number 4, we have Golden Lion Shiki. The captain is not only stated to be on par with Roger, but also fought the two greatest Marines at the same time. Now he did lose, but this wasn't just a one-shot, as half of Marineford was destroyed by the battle. Now finally, to the top 3. In third place, we have the Pirate King himself, Gol D. Roger. And no, Pirate King does not mean the strongest. The title is a combination of wealth, fame and power. Roger just so happened to have more of the first two requirements than Whitebeard. Unlike the king of the pirates, Whitebeard was not a man who was focused on riches and renown. However, he was described as the strongest man in the world, even in Roger's era, as well as before Roger got sick, which wouldn't change anything regardless. Finally, the number 1 placement on this list, undoubtedly the strongest One Piece character introduced so far, Rox D. Xebec. This placement was not so easy though, as both he and Whitebeard were described as Roger's greatest foes. Plus, Newgate didn't even reach his prime until years after the Rox Pirates disbanded. Honestly though, with the amount of hype and narrative buildup that Rox has gotten, I have to put him at number 1. There's a reason why we have a whole flashback that includes him, but we haven't even seen his face yet. That's all from the Legends tier, and the top 50 of 2023 has come to an end, with Rox D. Xebec being the strongest character. Don't get it twisted though, all 6 of these guys are said to be relative to each other, and honestly, the 6 of them versus B tier and below, I don't know who's winning that. I know y'all finna argue that Emu or at least Saturn should be here, but like, if we're gonna rank it that way, then fuck it. Let's just put Joy Boy at number 1 like every other top 10 list. As said before, I'm very curious to see what the rankings will be next year. We still have 40 characters with the potential to be relevant. Seriously, by the end of next year, D tier will be gone. I'm getting tired of talking like this, and the reason Doflamingo is not here is because he's fodder. Bye.